Hi, once again I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. I am also the author of Humanity's Inflection Point and the new book. This is the one you have to get a copy of. This is the ESIS, Life's Logic Module. Now I always have to start with, we must remember we are always in the presence of the living God. But this book that I have been inspired to write, the ESIS, Life's Logic Module, this book conclusively refutes the notion of natural selection. Now, as you know, the last 160 years or so, we have been told, and so completely throughout academia, we have this notion of the theory of evolution that is based on origins, based on natural selection. Now, a lot of people, naturalists and many others, maybe even you refer to what's happening out there and all the intelligence we observe as a result of nature, right? I mean, you've heard it a lot. Nature did this or nature did that. Well, for me, after doing all the research, what that says is it basically says that you agree with this theory of the ESIS, of something, an intelligent agent that drives things. And what that means is literally you do not agree with the theory of evolution, because evolution is about natural selection. Natural selection requires the random mutation. When you talk about nature giving us something, it's normally about nature endowing some plant, some animal, or you will hear all these terms, things like swarm intelligence or intelligent mutation. You will hear things like coevolution and mutualism. Well, all of these things are basically agreeing with the concept of an ESIS. So they have moved away from this whole thing of random. You don't hear random anymore, right? Do you hear anyone talking about, oh, this is based on random mutation, we have this? Because that's the origin of species based on natural selection. And so you have this concept of, the original concept was of these random mutations, and all these unfit mutants would die off. And that's the process of natural selection. When the unfit ones die off and only the good ones move on. One key point to remember is this is an ongoing process. So the random effects, the generation of random mutation does not stop. Because again, there is not supposed to be any intelligence tied to this process. And so you see the weak link right there? Because no, we don't see any of these random things being generated. If you look at the archaeological record, there is no record of anything that shows this random mutation process. As a matter of fact, and I've highlighted it in the book, right? The ESIS, Life's Logic Module, I've highlighted the examples that they used in the past. Things like the tonsils, the appendix, the thymus, even things like what they call, there was junk DNA and all of these things. All of these things, with knowledge, we recognize those things are very meaningful, very intelligently designed. So there is no random, like I say, in physics or chemistry and in biology. Nowhere in nature is there anything random. So in order to keep that going, they will say, well, random somehow generated intelligence. And they forgot to say that it's as if intelligence came in and says, you know what, I don't need random anymore. But that is an intelligent decision, and that should never happen with natural selection. So what we see is, if you look at an ant, a bee, even a tree, all of these things, they all adapt intelligently. So what we see throughout, there is no natural selection, just intelligent adaptation. And so this book highlights that. And so even though you will hear scientists and naturalists now try to somehow equate intelligence to random, that makes no sense. And so we have to go back to this intelligent agent, which does not need any natural selection. Because the examples they give of these bajau, sea nomads, and the things like, the color of skin changing and all of these things, that has to do with you have a need. And some intelligent agent is making these modifications to your DNA. Some intelligent agent is giving you exactly what you need, even though you did not know how to go about this. And so this is what we see, whether we look at a tree, some plant, or we look at an animal. When they talk about things like coevolution, and it's amazing. They just stuff these things out there, and we just eat it up. Yes, coevolution, mutualism. What that means is, they say that you have the same stimulus, and so it's as if the plant now, sentience, right? The plant now has personality. Now it's totally aware of itself. It says, well, that guy, or I will adapt this way. And as in the case of that, there was a fly in South Africa that has this really long proboscis, and as the plants decided they had this really long tube, and the nectar was at the bottom of this tube, this fly decided, you know what, I need to get a long proboscis to match that. Think about that. Out of random. But you see, with the ESIS and the GPS phenomenon, you got to buy the book. You got to get the book, the ESIS, because this is going to change things. Now, it will not change overnight, because you have this mass of people, just like when the earth was flat, or the earth was the center of the universe. This is not changing tomorrow, but it will change, and you will be ahead of the curve because you understood. We all understood that all of nature, right, it came out of this great intelligence, the creator who designed, and I go into all the details in the book, the ESIS, how the creator designed the sensory system. And so when you see some, like sharks, and they can detect the life force of something, whatever little electrical energy comes up, they can detect it. That all goes back to the ESIS, that awareness, the having all the senses, all the sensory equipment to detect these things that we can't do. We can't, create any instrument that has the sensory capability of a dog or a bear to smell things, right? We can't do that yet, but that was created. And so there's no way to associate that. And it goes into the book because that's very important, the sensory system. And the intelligence that we see in an ant, we see it in, whether you look at earthworms, you look at birds, you look at trees. Because when you listen to these naturalists and these scientists, you would think that trees are smarter and more capable than us. Because apparently trees in the Amazon that will be submerged, they went about adapting and, well, they would say randomly mutating and being naturally selected. Absolutely not. They have adapted to live in this type of environment. So when it's flooded, they they're just fine. You look at mangrove. So I'm talking about plants that has this capability that we don't have. We could not get night vision because from the time of the cavemen, we are still afraid of the dark. So if we had night vision like a cat, we would love it. We'd go out there. We don't have that capability, but they would tell you that these trees, these spiders, these birds, they all made the choice to change and mutate and intelligently mutate to all these things, like the owl with the face of the owl so that it can hear much better, the bill so that they can tear and get their food. All of these things, they'll tell you the fact that an owl has feathers that it flies almost soundlessly. All of these things, they'll tell you the bird did that. The bird did that. Because they can't say nature. Because what nature, according to the whole theory of evolution, is, nature is the place where all these fit mutants end up. So it's not a force, it's nothing but a place where they all end up. So when we go outside, that's nature. So now when people say nature did that, it's like, just a second, I thought nature was a place. Well, but we can use it. But now when someone says nature, what they actually are saying is, we understand there is an intelligent agent, the ESIS. That's what it is. Because the ESIS resides within each of us. Every plant, every animal. When he designed the ESIS, he placed it in, it was part of life itself. He designed the sensory system, the ESIS, and the various bodies. The ESIS knows of all the senses. This is why birds, bees, the ESIS within them know that I can use, whether it's the magnetic field or light or whatever it needs. The ESIS is that intelligent engine, life's logic module. That's the one. Its job is to take care of whomever it's placed in. So when it's in a tree, it takes care of the tree. It says, I'm a tree, and so I'm going to do everything to make sure that this can survive and proliferate. When it's in a mosquito, it says, I'm in a mosquito. So that consciousness, that sentience, this is why when I talk about anthropomorphism, right, attributing human characteristics to other things that are non-human, that's why it is appropriate. We do it all the time, and they say we only do it because so that people can understand. No, it's because it's appropriate. Because the same ESIS that's in you and me is in the tree. This is why the tree has behaviors that we can see within ourselves. This is why we can see behaviors in a flea, in a mosquito, in any bird. The caring and trying to take care of itself and take care of its young, putting it in the right place and getting it in the right environment. So that's what it's about. So pick up a copy of the ESIS, Life's Logic Module, because you will be way ahead of the curve in understanding this wave that's coming. This is a big change, because ultimately they must, because right now, like I said in the book, they have eviscerated the theory of evolution and this concept of random and natural selection. It has been eviscerated by the scientists and the naturalists, because they've recognized, no, there is intelligence, and they say, well, we don't really understand why. Well, because the ESIS within that animal is striving to ensure that it can survive and proliferate. The ESIS, Life's Logic Module, designed by the Creator. And so you see, this is not about any religion or any of that stuff. We step outside, feel the power, the omnipotence of the Creator in giving us this ESIS that lives within all of us. That's within us, it's a sixth sense that tells you, be careful, look out for this, be careful. It guides you because it's there. It's the subconscious within us, within all living things. So pick up a copy of the ESIS, Life's Logic Module, and let's get this rolling. I am actually pushing to get a, it's almost like a case of let's debate, let's have a, because it's all circumstantial evidence, right? But if you compare random to this intelligence which we see in every living thing, and there is no history, nowhere in the archaeological record or anywhere in nature can you find anything random. Every random is only associated with ignorance. When we don't know, we say, oh yeah, this could be. And then within 5 minutes, somebody's going to say, oh no, we did some research and we found out that it's tied, there's an intelligence to everything. So the ESIS is what we've been avoiding. And I know academia, it really, really irks them. I mean, they find it so reprehensible, the concept of us coming from an intelligent source, because it must be random. And I understand there may be some history there, right? Because you had the Inquisition and the, that coercion from the religious, sectors. But we have to recognize that we are the product of intelligence, and the ESIS is that's the nature within us. It ties us to these old cultures that says, yes, we are brothers and sisters with everything around us. But the ESIS within something, it's designed to survive and proliferate. So you see that within everything, again, that anthropomorphism, that human, that humanistic sort of characteristics that we see in everything. And they told us, oh no, no, it is real. It is real. Everything is there. The ESIS, the same ESIS, is there in everything so that to assist it in surviving and proliferating. So you've got a little hint of what's in the book. There are tons of examples, and as more come, I may do some more things, but this is the big one. This is the big one. This is the one where you get all the information and you can refute all this stuff about random, and even those who are trying to equate random with intelligence. You're like, really? Random is the same as intelligence? Or intelligence, random gave way to intelligence? And so when did random stop? It just decided to just like, I'm going to take a vacation. So you'll see, what it does not make sense about the arguments that they put out. So once again, I want to thank you for taking the time to review this. And since we are doing the work of exposing this, of really changing the world so we can have true brotherhood of mankind that is in harmony with nature, I think we will receive His blessings. So once again, I want to thank you, and until next time, may God bless us all. Thank you.